Good evening, and thanks for joining me. Mindy sends her regrets that she can't join us today. She had a rather unfortunate incident with one of our cats this morning. She'll be okay. She's got medication, but pray for her that she'll get better and she'll be able to join us tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm going to go over the second part of our devotion, which is taken from the book Carols of Christmas by Alan Vermilye, talking about the history and the meaning of some of the most loved Christmas songs of all time. This week we're looking at O Holy Night, and I wanted to look at the first couple of lines of this song. It starts out, "O holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth." What I love about the words to this song is how well it places you at that time, at that place, right? It's asking you to sort of be a participant, right there at the manger, in that stable in Bethlehem on that night. And it's a wonderful way to encounter the Christ child. And I think that's a very important thing for us to focus on. I would say that it's good to focus on that amidst all the distraction of all the lights and all the decorations and all of that stuff. But honestly, there's a reason why we have all the twinkling lights around this time of year. There's a reason why we celebrate light at Christmas time, and there's a reason why we celebrate Christ's birth at this time of year. Even though the best and brightest of the biblical scholars are going to say, well, actually, Jesus was born probably sometime in autumn. There's a reason why we celebrate it around this time of year. This is the time around the time of what we call the winter solstice, right? It's the longest night of the year, oftentimes the darkest night of the year. But people, long before the birth of Christ, used to celebrate the solstice because they knew it was the longest night of the year, and they knew that was as bad as it was going to get, right? As dark as it got, the days are shorter, the nights are longer, the world is colder, and seems to be losing life. All the leaves are falling off the trees and all that. But at the time of the winter solstice, they knew the night wouldn't get any longer than that. After that night, light would return. The days would start getting a little bit longer. And that's a perfect way to think about what Christ did for us, being born on earth. When we sing about the stars brightly shining, that's a reminder to us that even in a dark time, and for first century Judea, it did seem to be a really dark time, right? They were under occupation by the Romans. They and the Pharisees had sort of taken over their faith and trying to collaborate with the Romans with this foreign power. They didn't have a sense of self-rule, self-determination, and they longed for the coming of the Messiah, who would restore justice. They were longing for that light. They were dwelling in darkness. Now they were expecting a king to be born amidst all the usual ways that you would know that a king was born. A royal heir in a royal palace, and his birth would be announced by trumpets and heralds and the news would be spread all throughout the land. What we got instead was a child born to a workaday Joe, literally, born in a stable, a place for animals, resting in a feeding trough, right? The most humble and ignoble origin that you could ask for. And yet, this was the introduction of God's light made flesh in the world. That's a lot to unpack. The night of our dear Savior's birth. That's why we celebrate Christmas around the time of the winter solstice. It's a return of light into the world, right? You look at our world today, you look at your news feed, you look at the headlines, and you'd think that we really were living in some pretty dark times. And it's great to remember that this is a time where we are celebrating the return of light into the world, right? God has incarnated himself. He's incarnated his love. He's incarnated his peace. He's incarnated his grace into this tiny child lying in a manger. This is why we celebrate Christmas around this time. This is why we have all the lights that we have decorating all our houses and all the streets. This is why we sing these songs. So this is still the beginning of December, and the nights are still getting long, but in a couple of weeks they'll be as long as they're going to get. So think about that as you're going around doing your Christmas planning, wrapping up your year-end stuff. As you're driving around at 4:59 p.m. and marveling, wow, it's really getting dark early this time of year. Remember that there's still light, that there is still peace, that there is still hope, because Christ was born. I'm going to stop there, and we'll pick this up tomorrow morning. We'll continue to talk about the other verses of this song. In the meantime, hope you learned something and give you something to think about. And we will see you tomorrow. You take care, and God bless. Bye-bye.